Step 2, what should your research question be? Well, again, it should be very, very specific. You should really aim for a very clear goal. One thing that you're going to be gathering knowledge about. So it should always be a knowledge question in most research papers for universities of applied science and universities, full stop. You're going to want to gather knowledge. And this has to be knowledge that hasn't been written down yet. Okay, so how are you going to gather knowledge that hasn't been written down yet? Well, that's what you have to go for, because if it has already been written down, you don't need to do your research, right? The wrong type of question would be, how does television work? We know how television works, and it's a very, very broad question to be asking, because when you're writing in a university or University of Applied Sciences, you probably only have months at most to do this research. So keep it very, very specific. For example, a better question would be, how do audiences of BBC One feel about commercial breaks in the middle of a drama series? Or even more specifically, in the middle of an episode of Doctor Who? We've now made it very, very specific. It's not just television, it's BBC One. It's not just any old programming, it's drama series, or more specifically even, it's Doctor Who. Like with your phenomenon, you really want to box yourself in, because people are always talking about thinking outside the box. Well, for a research paper, you really want to be thinking inside the box. You want to create that box for yourself so that you know exactly what you're going to be answering. That is why there's another element I want you to consider when formulating your question, your method. How will you be gathering knowledge? How will you be gathering data to answer your question? You need to know already, when writing your question, how you're going to be gathering your data, so what your research method is. If you want to find out, for instance, when most people in the Netherlands between the age of 20 and 40, if that happens to be relevant, post stuff on Instagram, then you're going to have to do a quantitative research. You're going to have to look into a lot of people, look into a lot of Instagram posts maybe. So you're going to be counting. If you want to find out something else entirely, for example, how people using a certain fan fiction website feel about gay relationships in their fiction, you're probably going to have to do interviews, so qualitative research. You're going to be talking to these people, I imagine. You're going to do interviews. So really think about what sort of information you need. Is it quantitative? Is it numbers? Is it percentages? Or is it qualitative? Are you looking for the meaning behind something, the reason behind something? Another part of the research question that I often advise my students to put in there is the client, in case you have a client, which is often the case for universities of applied science. Why do I want them to put the client in? Well, because it helps narrow the question down. For example, if you're looking into festivals, you cannot possibly talk about every festival worldwide. So maybe, for instance, talk about Milkshake Festival. You're probably doing it for them. You can talk to the people who go to Milkshake Festival, and then you get very clear, precise information. And in academia, we like clear and precise. I feel a little bit like Bob Ross sitting here talking to you about how to do stuff, but we cannot have any happy little accidents. Be precise. While as far as I know there is no universal recipe for a successful research question, I would advise you to include at least some of the elements that I'm going to name. Your client, if you have one. Your case study, if you have one. Think really hard about your method, so try to incorporate your method in there somewhere. There are verbs that you would use if you are doing this kind of research or that kind of research. Or how do people feel? What is the difference between? That sort of thing. So really think about those words that fit with your method. And of course include academic terms, because then you can dive into your literature, which is something for next time. If you have questions about your research question, so this is getting very meta, please put them in the comments below and I will answer them. Or if you're a student of mine, again, please email me at my work email address.